This podcast is rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Some material may not be suitable for children.
All right, so what were we doing again?
What are we doing?
I don't know.
Speaking of John's children, John, we're watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit this week.
We are.
That's right.
And a question for you. Would you show a child this movie?
Yes.
You would.
We actually did.
You did.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Because my thoughts watching this movie this time is I watched this a bunch when I was a kid, and I can tell why I liked it because it was totally inappropriate for children.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of
There's
really
tits
understand
and
that,
ass
though?
and murder all over the
that's
place
true.
in this movie.
Well,
That's true.
there is the one scene which you can. I'm sure you know exactly what scene it is that was horrifying to the kids.
The
to
killing the
Sam.
shoe.
Yes,
Killing the shoe is awful.
Oh, yeah. Do you know who the voice of the shoe? The voice was?
No.
Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson.
Oh, look at that.
Oh.
The kids liked it though. They were. Of
course they did. It's totally inappropriate. You shouldn't have let them watch
it. Seemed to go over their head. No, they're fine.
All the jokes went over their head.
It still doesn't seem real.
I would imagine. I was going to ask you, Denny. Did you even remember?
I remember all the jokes that I didn't get and getting them now. Like I didn't get the Scotch on the rocks. I mean ice, and he comes back and pulls a rock out. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand that at all.
I got that this time. Yep.
Yeah. And there was like some jokes about like liquor. There was like a lot of liquor jokes. There was jokes like that were somewhat like dirty jokes, but they didn't say the dirty word, but like the dirty word was implied. And without knowing what was implied, it didn't make any sense.
The sound was used, right? Or the sound was used, and it was like they were having sex sounds, but then they
patty cake. The patty cake thing
else.
I didn't get as a kid.
The patty cake thing.
It's supposed to be sex, but it's just they're playing patty cake, and that's supposed to be as bad to a cartoon as sex. Didn't get that. Didn't get that was supposed to be equal. And I mean, that's kind of good because your kids probably didn't get it, but at the same time, there's like a baby smoking a cigar. There's Jessica Rabbit. Anything she's in. There's the scene with like the person taking care of the babies, just ass on the screen. Bunch of dirty drunks in this movie. There's a lot of real violence. There's dead bodies in the screen. There's torture and murder on screen. Even though it's a cartoon character, that scene's horrific. And then Christopher Lloyd. He haunted my dreams as a kid, I think. As that character, Judge Doom.
Yeah.
Especially when he flattens
scary.
out and like starts screaming in the high-pitched voice and flying all over the place.
That was pretty spooky.
Yeah, a lot of childhood trauma came flooding back to me on this one. It was nice. But this movie is amazing. Don't you think? I think it's my turn to go first.
You go
with
first.
All that being said,
you should go
I don't
first,
think my parents should. I appreciated my parents showing it to me because I think I loved it
How
as a kid.
old were you when you saw it?
Too young. I just remember being shocked.
What,
it was
what age? So I guess you saw it. Did you go see it in the theater?
No.
So
it must have just come out. I don't know when that would have been. When it came out, I was 4 years old. So maybe 6 to 8, maybe.
Okay. All right. So I've damaged my children.
Yes.
Yes.
How old's your youngest?
So he's 5.
Permanent damage.
Yeah. He didn't seem to care. He didn't say a word, but maybe he was so,
was he glued to the screen?
So traumatized. Yeah, he was watching.
Oh yeah.
Both were watching.
Well,
Sam was.
You can talk to
Sam,
him in 30
again,
years and see what he says about it when you show it to him.
Yeah,
again.
we'll have to see.
But I don't think it was bad, like traumatizing in a bad way, except for the scary parts. But I don't know. Watching it now, there's a lot more jokes. Like it really seems like a movie made for adults. It's really, really weird how you have all these like childhood cartoon characters in a movie that is so clearly like a dark noir movie that typically is an R-rated like genre of movies. And it's a pretty good one of those. There's like a lot of drinking, a lot of bad characters, a lot of snooping around. Those snooping around scenes aren't necessarily even, I don't even remember them because I think I probably stopped paying attention to those scenes when I was a kid. But now it's like, well, this plot's pretty good for a noir. Like there's some good intrigue here. Like it has you guessing on like who did what, who actually framed him. Like keeps keeps you guessing there.
They give you the misleading, the Jessica. They give you all these sort of.
It tricked me this time. I didn't remember it wasn't her. I was like, wait a minute, she's a bad guy. I don't remember that. That's fucked.
See.
Plus, like the animation is like this is a unique movie, right? There's nothing like this movie. The only thing I could think of trying to think of anything is like the new Chip and Dale movie where they kind of have live action stuff with CG and that, but that's all computer animated, and this was all hand drawn.
It's
animation,
and the other thing is
it combines studios.
You'll never see that again, probably, right?
It's never happened before. It never happened
Bugs
since.
Bunny and Mickey
together.
Unless Disney buys Warner Brothers,
which will never
that could
happen. No way.
Could.
I felt bad
Good.
for Little Bo Peep. Didn't you? I felt bad for Little Bo Peep.
Oh, you mean
Betty Boop?
I could still
Betty
hack
Boop?
it, or Betty Boop.
Betty
There it
Boop,
is.
yeah,
Betty Boop. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can still
yeah.
hack it. So what if they
No,
took
you
out the
can't.
color?
She's in color.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
it's
now
kinda
that
sad.
whole movie is what she was going through.
Yep. The hand drawn. It was like right at the edge
Yeah.
too. Like 1988. That was right before Beauty and the Beast, right? Like Little
Yeah.
Mermaid was the last hand drawn Disney movie.
Yeah.
And then Beauty and the Beast was like partially hand drawn and partially computer animated.
What year did Little Mermaid come out?
I think it was 88 or 89.
Right. So, because some people were saying too, that's
89.
kind of the resurgence of Disney. Like this film helped that. Like
Yeah.
it helped rekindle the interest in animation.
Because all the animators were scattered around the world because
Mhm.
hand drawn animation was no longer a thing. And this movie had over 300 of the best animators in the world. Not of the best animators. They had the best animators in the world. They hired every single one of them for this movie and flew them out. And they animated for, years in this movie. I think it was 2 years they animated. 300
Wow.
people.
Wow.
There's 82,000
That's crazy.
hand-drawn frames. And every hand-drawn
Holy
frame,
shit.
they printed out a single frame of the movie. So like, all right, I'll save that for trivia. There's like a lot of trivia on how they made this movie. It's fucking insane how they made it. It's unique. It'll never be made this way again because you would never need to waste the time to do it this way again. But it's pretty incredible that they did it. And it's even more incredible that it worked out so well that like it looks good still, I think. I don't think this type, I don't know if it's because I saw it when I was a kid, but this type of like animation against the realism part, it still
it looks
really
great.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
And there were only a couple
They had some
parts.
really good like mix of like where a hand comes up that's human, and then the overlay of the animation is in perfect like perspective.
Yep.
So it like matches perfectly. It was really impressive.
Yeah. And I can only tell a couple of parts where like the colors of the background were going through. I think I could only tell it when Eddie was in Toontown. You could kind of see the colors bleed through him. Because I think I don't know if it's different when he's on a green screen for the Toontown part versus like him just being in a studio and then they paint over him. Like all that stuff looked great. But like when he was in Toontown, didn't look perfect, I guess. I don't know. You could still kind of see some weird stuff going on, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was in
it's
a
still-
weird environment, so it didn't.
it was
he
fine. Right.
He was
yeah.
in this strange environment anyway, so if he looked a little weird, it was like,
Yeah.
it didn't really
His
This
impact
whole
Right,
place
body,
looks
yeah.
weird. There's a ton to look
Right,
at here.
right. So yeah, exactly. So yeah,
So all that stuff is sweet. The imagination and stuff is really good. The amount of characters.
Well, I
It's
think-
funny too, is the thing. Like Roger is a
yeah.
new character and he is an out of control maniac. And it really made me laugh a lot because he's out of control. He's like in danger for his life and he can't help himself but be an idiot multiple times
I know.
as it's going
Yeah.
on. It's great.
no, but
Well,
also
yeah.
that this was before The Simpsons. This was before there were adult cartoons really that were mainstream, I think. And so
So he had
this
he
idea,
had Fritz the cat, right?
well, yeah, but that was weird. It wasn't like, I don't know. It wasn't like something that would be popular. Well, I don't know, maybe Fritz the Cat was popular entertainment.
This is the
But,
second biggest movie of the year. This one.
Yeah. So, but this idea of of like the adult twist to the humor, but even like the great, you have this great, funny, ridiculous opening cartoon, and to have it end with the baby yelling at the director,
Yeah.
like that was completely like bonkers, like in terms of never thinking of that before, like thinking about a cartoon character having a life outside of the cartoon and what they might be like.
And it's like
that-
every
that-
cartoon
that-
isn't drawn. It's like cartoon characters are filming the same way everything else is being made in the
and
studio.
they're not who they act. Or they may, Roger is who he is, but like Baby Herman is exactly not who he is as he's drawn. And it just that twist right off the bat is hilarious. It's just
Yeah, it
also
is.
like something. It's so
fun.
creative. You don't see it coming at all. At least I remember like just being really knocked out. First, like laughing hysterically at that cartoon.
Oh, the cartoon
when I
made me
first
laugh
saw it.
so hard. The entire thing was just him getting really hurt and flying around was. I felt like an idiot laughing so hard at it.
No, it was good. But then they have the move into then the baby's yelling at the director. Just the director, sorry, it's Roger. I don't know. It's just so good. Yeah, just that opening sequence by itself, let alone everything else that happens afterwards.
Yeah, it was a fun little take on LA too.
right?
in Hollywood. They were making fun of themselves quite a bit in this, or just making fun of Hollywood in general. And that's kind of shit that I found funny.
Well, of
So
course.
that was fun to like watch this movie now, since I would never have understood it back then either. I wouldn't have got the California jokes. So there's a lot of people in the world that don't really understand all the California jokes, but I was getting all of them, obviously. And it was, it's I'm glad I watched it now rather than being it as a kid, because I never figured that out.
Is it the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen this.
Oh, shit.
No way. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't watch this as a kid.
We should
No
let
way.
TC go first.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I don't really
Usually
have much.
that's the, I know.
I'm too old. As much as I liked and was impressed by it, I was like, I'm not a kid anymore.
I no longer
So you got a
have
feeling
any
that it
joy in
was
my life.
for kids?
What?
You felt like
no,
it would,
I just remember thinking about it the whole time, like, this is all tunes, like the Looney Tunes, and like just like being disconnected from them. I'm like,
At that time, right.
Yeah.
It would have been more special when you were more of a fan of Bugs Bunny or Donald Duck and Daffy and all. If you were, it was a good time for me, and it might for Denny. I don't know if it was disturbing for you, maybe, because if you know these characters like as just from the other cartoons, to see them acting differently.
did they act differently? I don't even know if
they
did.
don't actually. No, they don't. They don't. They actually don't. You're right. It's a good point with the.
There's like other tunes that act
There's
way
other
different
tunes,
than
but
like the calm
original
Disney
ones do this,
that,
right? Like Baby Herman does this, but you're right. And that's probably the studios want that. The like Mickey or Bugs, they're still more or less in character. They're
like
not
the
ones
big
acting
names
weird.
that
It's not like
don't
Mickey's
change.
got a drinking problem
Yeah.
or whatever. That wouldn't fly,
Right.
So,
but Mickey and Bugs co-murdered a human being in Toontown.
well, yeah,
Come on,
they did. That's true,
True.
or at least they
Yeah.
thought they were going to allow it to happen. They could have helped.
right? And
I
you're
mean, just
for
an
the-
idea
for the
that there's
laughs.
an investigator about like movie sets. You know what I mean? Like, that's funny. Like, even if it's not about the tunes, like just the idea of like there would be like a guy that was in place to investigate shitty things going on in the Hollywood world. Like, that's
Right.
funny to me.
They used to have that. I think we've talked about like big budget movies where they would have a spy, like the producers would have a spy on set to like keep the directors in line, that sort of thing.
Oh, really?
Or like
Wow.
report
I don't
back to
remember
the
talking about
producers.
that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely.
They'd have moles.
Was it? I forget who it was. Some producer didn't like the director, but the director was big, and the director didn't listen and knew he wasn't going to follow direction from the producer. So they had like spies on set.
Oh, wow.
Not surprising.
This is a little different though. This is like a private sleuth to be like,
Yeah, right. This is like his sole job is investigating.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's just so like ridiculously noir. His brother was killed by a tune, and I mean, it's just
right.
perfect. It really the way they decide to set all this up, and even like the whole like the streetcar, sort of buying out the streetcars so you can have the freeway. All of this just like dirty Chinatown type stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
true.
nice.
That's a good point. It's Chinatown.
Yeah, I think I remember reading in somewhere in the Wikipedia that part of the plot was inspired. Well, part of that plot was inspired because that actually did happen.
They killed all the tunes with Dip.
No.
Oh.
But the mass transit was like bought out, and for the express purpose of killing it. But yeah, so
Makes
there's
sense.
some like
Who
other,
needs a
like,
car
actual
in
thing.
L.A.?
Hoskins is amazing.
He's out of control.
I mean,
Good.
He's just playing it as much as he can and doing a fantastic job.
And you can't even tell how physically he's acting against nothing. It's really hard to
Right,
tell he's
right.
even acting. But then, like, hearing about it, how he really was anytime or most of the time when he was like fighting something or grabbing something, it was just him. There was nothing else there.
Really?
And there's
Nobody else.
There's footage of him doing it, and it's fucking incredible. He is like fully committed, and he's really, really good at it.
Yeah, and he again fits the private eye look.
He
He's
does.
Not,
It's a Columbo look.
yeah.
That hat and the sauntering in and
hairy
half
back.
drunk drinker, all of it.
That was one of Disney's notes with the back. They said, does this, they watched the cut of it and they're like, does he have to have so much hair on his back? And it's like, you can't cut that out. You can't cut that out.
You
Can
can't
we,
do
like,
that.
can we do
We've already
something
blown
about
up the
that?
effects budget, man. We can't do that.
Yeah.
You know
Is
how
there
much
any
that
way we
cost?
could-
Gonna paint out all the hairs
Jesus.
in each frame? I don't think
I
so.
guess you just
Too
have a
much.
stunt double or
The
something.
hairy
but-
bastard.
Do you know who was the
There was a
original
reason.
choice?
Can I stick on that for 1 second, John? There was a
yeah,
reason why
please.
Jessica Rabbit was so far away from him in that scene. It's because the way you animate is you kind of have to animate around people, but you can't. They didn't want to have to animate through the hair. Because that's really, really fucking hard. When that scene where he has his shirt off and Jessica Rabbit's in the room, they put her far away, so she stayed away from his back hair. That was the reason.
You just have to explain to him.
Man.
What's she for? Bob's like, why is she so far away? Man? She needs to be closer, doesn't she?
It's like, we can't get the guys to animate around your back hair, dude. You gotta get a lot of it.
Never heard that before. That's an insult I've never heard in my life. You have so much back hair, we can't animate around you.
Yeah. Sorry, John, what were you going to say?
No, I didn't know of your trivia if you knew the original choice for Spielberg to play Eddie Valiant.
I did. You got any guesses, TC? Who would you want to cast as a sleuth?
As a sleuth?
As like a private eye? The main character?
And it's by Spielberg. Who would Spielberg choose?
And wear a hat that's kind of like that?
Yeah. Oh, maybe, I don't know, maybe Chevy Chase or...
Oh, that's a good one. He would have been good.
Like a Fletch?
Yeah.
It's Harrison Ford, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
But Chevy Chase was the second choice. He wasn't interested. So Harrison Ford, this is according to the Wikipedia page, which is great. Harrison Ford's...
Thumbs up on the Wikipedia page from John. That's always good.
Yes. And lazy investigation by me. But yeah, Harrison Ford was his original choice, but his price was too high, apparently. Chevy Chase was the second choice. So you're right, TC, but he was not interested. Bill Murray was considered, but due to his method of receiving offers for roles, he missed out on it.
Which is what?
I don't know.
What's his
meaning
method?
like he just wasn't looking at the offers or didn't read it.
He needs a treasure hunt to a script or something. He needs like special treatment.
And so I mean, Murray would have been good, but maybe he wouldn't have played it low key.
This is right around Groundhog Day, and wasn't he a miserable bastard back then? He might have brought a real grumpiness to it that wouldn't have been fun.
That's all we need. Right, or just made life hell for the director or something.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy turned down the role. He just didn't understand the concept of Toons and Humans, and he said he later regretted.
Well, when you get $400 million box office, you're going to regret your decision.
Yeah, exactly, right? Everybody regrets this. Yeah. Other people were considered Robin Williams, Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson.
Robin Williams?
Shit.
That would have been
Robin
something.
Williams, huh?
Jack Nicholson would have been, in a way, it would have been a little redundant after Chinatown.
I feel like with a lot of these actors, they would have gotten direction, and they would have been like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, so Roger's grabbing you by the chest. You look freaked out. And he's like, I'm just going to chill.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough one.
Yeah, because would they let themselves be sort of humiliated in a way?
Yeah.
Like, or beaten up and messed up.
Or like willing to look stupid, like you said, when they're trying to
goes all
act
out
against nothing.
Yeah.
He
falls a lot in this movie. Just eat shit into garbage cans, out of elevators in his face.
So Tim Curry, just to go on more on the acting, because it's, again, really, really interesting. Tim Curry auditioned for the role of Judge Doom, but he was rejected because the producers found him too terrifying. He was too scary.
I could see that.
Christopher Lee was considered, but he turned it down. John Cleese expressed interest, but he was deemed not scary enough.
Really?
I read too about them. They didn't want a bad guy as somebody in Monty Python. They didn't think people would buy that.
Yeah, it might have been hard. I think it might be really cool to see John Cleese be a scary guy. But okay, so that's it for the casting bit.
Perfect casting. Couldn't think of better people to fall into these roles.
Yeah, I think so. It worked. I mean, that's with a lot of good movies. That's the way it seems, you know. But I also just think because Hoskins, I mean, not that he was completely unknown or anything, but he is this character because I mean, like me, I hadn't seen him in anything else. So he, if it would have been Harrison Ford or something, I don't think it would have seemed as, I don't know. It just wouldn't have seemed like as a real character. Then it would have been like Harrison Ford, or it had been Jack Nicholson. It wouldn't have, or even Bill Murray. It would have been like, wouldn't have felt like that was this guy.
Yeah, agreed. And of course, you got the Charles Fleischer guy, the guy who does the voice of Roger Rabbit. His voice makes me laugh.
Apparently, he dressed up.
Yeah,
in
dude.
A costume.
They had video footage of him in it. That's how they filmed it. Because, so do you want to get into trivia now? What do you say?
Well, let's cover the film. Is there anything more that we want to?
Well, if you want to talk about how he was doing it behind the scenes,
I know. Well, there's so much cool stuff like this, right?
Let's just go. I'll say it as it comes along. So when they were filming it, he was dressed up like a rabbit by his choice. He wanted to be as involved as possible. The way they filmed this movie is they had a storyboard and they perfected the storyboard before they set up anything. And then once they did that, they first went through and filmed the entire movie with the actors with rubber models of all the characters that'll be animated. So like they did that to practice how the shadows were going to be. So like they did it for the animators to show how the shadows would be. And then they also did it for the actors to see like where the eye line would be and how tall these characters actually were. And they did like all this setup of like, all right, he's on the table in this one. You grab him by the ears, but you have to lift your arm up to like here because his eyes are here. Like they had just a model of Roger. And they did all this like semantic stuff of like, because we're eventually going to remove this rubber puppet on the second time we film it, where there's going to be nothing. And you have to remember all this stuff so we can animate it later.
Wow.
Because we can't have anything here. Or sometimes they actually had like robots where they painted over and stuff like that. So the Roger guy, when they were filming the second time, and I think probably the first time, but the second time where they were getting the footage for real that we see here, the guy, Charles Fleischer, was behind the scenes, and you should look it up, John. It's pretty funny. He kind of looks like, it's like a Roger Rabbit / Mario kind of outfit. It's not like a full body thing, but it has like a hat, like a Mario hat with like ears sticking out of it. And it's pretty, he looks stupid as hell. And he does the Roger Rabbit voice against Eddie for all the takes. Nice. So at least Eddie can act against something, even though like he's staring at nothing.
Yeah.
He also said that he had, he filmed this for 8 months. This was an 8-month shoot, which is very, very long. The budget starting was $30 million and it ballooned to $70 million as it went along.
Holy shit.
At the time, it was the highest budget movie of all time. And at the time also, it had the most credits, had the most people working on it of any movie that had ever been made.
Of any movie ever?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Because they had over 300 animators plus everybody else.
Right. That makes sense.
Totally crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, what other thoughts do you guys got? I'll throw that shit in once.
I don't know if you've got lots of trivia on the role Steven Spielberg played here in all kinds of ways, but
I really don't. Do you have any?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Did he poltergeist this one?
He didn't direct it, but he had a lot of creative input. It starts with like Disney purchased the film rights to the book by Gary K. Wolfe, which was a 1981 publication book called Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which I have like a small amount of blurbs. I read a good chunk of it, so I can talk about that if we get to Book Corner at some point. But so they purchased that, and then the project was revamped in '85 by Michael Eisner, who is the new CEO of Disney, and Amblin Entertainment, which consisted of Spielberg, Marshall, and Kathleen Kennedy. They were approached to produce Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And so, but the original budget was priced at $50 million, which Disney thought was too expensive. So then it was greenlit with the budget decreased to $30. That would have made it the most expensive animated film ever produced even then.
Wow.
But Jeffrey Katzenberg argued that the hybrid of live action would save Walt Disney feature animation. He was freaking right. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? He was like, he said, this will do it. And it says so again, a lot of this is Wikipedia notes here too, but Spielberg's contract included an extensive amount of creative control and a large percentage of the box office profits.
Good for him. Get that money, Steven. You need more of it. Why not?
Right. Spielberg is credited with convincing Warner Brothers, Fleischer Studios, Famous Studios, King Features Syndicate, Felix the Cat Productions, Turner Entertainment, Universal Pictures to lend their characters to appear in the film.
How the fuck did he do that?
Lend?
He's fucking Steven Spielberg. Like,
that doesn't matter. That's ridiculous. They wouldn't do that for anybody.
I know.
Without paying them?
Well, I don't know what it'd be really nice to know what's behind the scenes here, but when, at least again, from what I got from Wiki, and maybe there's some good books on this too, which I should have looked in if I had time, but it seems like Spielberg was the person that helped do this. I don't know what he did. He just said, I'm Steven Spielberg and I make good movies and look at what I've done.
Probably all he did.
When I'm involved in these films, they make millions of dollars. And if you want your characters in films that make millions and millions of dollars, it'll be good for your characters, don't you think? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, you already sold me, John. You're pretty good at that too.
Right? We're doing this. We're doing this project that has never been done before, may never be done again. And it's the combination of two things that we
And
all
I already
love.
got all these other guys signed on. You don't want to be the only ones left out, right?
We do.
And your characters are about to fall off the face of the planet, just like Betty Boop.
Exactly. Katzenberg is saying this is going to save Disney feature animation. Maybe it's going to save your stuff too, because aren't you wondering what's the future? Who knows? But it's really interesting to think that once again, Poltergeist, Gremlins, all these things, Spielberg seems to just be doing a lot of shit that he doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of direct credit for either. Or that you don't see him out there talking about how he did all these things. But in his heyday, man, it seems like he was involved in the success of quite a bit of stuff.
He had like 25 years. He was unstoppable.
Yeah.
From like the mid 70s to like the late 90s.
Right.
Just a
And that's
wrecking
just,
ball.
you could just say like, you can look at what he accomplished as a director, which is spectacular. But there were all these other things he was doing that we only learn about as we like try to go into the background of the way some of these films were made. And it's like, holy shit, there was Spielberg getting all this stuff done.
Doing all this shit, yeah. Pulling strings.
Not to knock, I mean, Zemeckis was the director because there was a lot of behind the scenes footage and he was there.
This
I didn't
wasn't
see
a
Spielberg
poltergeist
at all
situation.
on
Yeah,
set.
this is not a poltergeist situation, right? Yeah.
Zemeckis was very involved. And I mean, he did Back to the Future. He's a talented
extremely,
dude too.
Accomplished director in his own right. He doesn't need, but a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that was going on seems to, Spielberg was very helpful.
And do you know this movie got put in the bin the first time they tried to make it when it was called what was it called? The first name
Who Censored Roger Rabbit was the book.
So that was the book. That was the name of the movie when they first tried to make it. And that was back like 4 or 5 years before it was actually made because Spielberg wanted Zemeckis to do it, but he only had his first 2 movies out at that point. And the producers were like, they looked at that and they're like, I don't think he's got it. They're not good enough. And then in the next 4 years,
had, like, used cars, and he had a couple of films that were like very good.
But then he did
hits.
he did Back to the Future and Romancing the Stone, the next 2. So his third and fourth movie were those 2. And they're like, all right,
guess he's got it.
This guy can make money. Let's go back to this idea.
Yeah, right.
It's always about the money.
It worked out.
It works for the audience if it's good. The product's good, and that's fine.
Right.
They're happy, we're happy,
So, do you my final Spielberg
did I sell
tie-in that I
unless
know?
Unless you watch the Donkey movie and then you're
oh no!
I'm sorry, TC.
What a fucking...
I don't know if you did you leave that in our last episode, Denny, where we're saying that's what we're gonna watch.
I thought we texted about it this weekend. I thought it was clear to everybody that we were doing Who Framed instead of the Donkey movie.
No, I'm talking about like even in our last episode though. I don't know if you left that.
The
in
last
there.
episode, I think we left it as like go to the website. We don't know what we're doing.
Oh, I thought we said we were watching the Donkey movie.
We did, but then I think we took that back and then said we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, well, now we're gonna take it back again because we're never watching that one.
I'm glad I didn't watch it. It was bad.
Oh my fucking god!
Oh no!
Oh, it was brutal.
TC watched the movie EO, just the letters.
EO, whatever.
Yeah, is it a movie about a donkey?
EO or EO or
EO.
Donkey EO? Captain EO.
It's the letter E and then the letter O.
That's the name of the
It was nominated for Best Foreign Picture, and we half decided to watch it last week, but then took it back, and then TC watched it anyway, and apparently it sucks.
Best Foreign Picture, my ass. I mean, think about the protagonist is a donkey. What can you do with that? It doesn't speak.
It just wanders around and looks at people doing things.
It just wanders around and gets fucking screwed. That's all it does the whole fucking time.
It should have been called The Donkey That Got Screwed.
It just gets screwed. Every little turn he goes, he gets fucked over somehow and put into some other brutal situation. Which is, I guess, probably what animals go through. But boy.
It sounds like The Bicycle Thieves. Maybe it was like an homage to old school Italian cinema or something like that. And so all the critics were like, hey, this is nice.
There's a lot of
like
stuff
this.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go back to the better movie.
The good one.
So I have one more Spielberg tie-in. So the singing voice of Jessica Rabbit was Amy Irving, who was Steven Spielberg's wife at the time.
Oh, no shit.
And
he's got his paws all over this, huh?
The following year, but yeah.
You don't have more in that trivia? So that's news to me.
More?
Yeah, there's more. The talking voice was Kathleen Turner, and Kathleen Turner was not credited in the credits, even though it had the most names on credits up to that point. She was uncredited.
Why was she not credited?
Maybe it's because it was Steven Spielberg's wife. I didn't know, but that might be a thing
Kathleen Turner wasn't his wife. Amy Irving was the
right.
singer.
So she's the one who got credit for Jessica Rabbit, and the person who talked got shit because the person who sang was married to fucking Steven Spielberg. Maybe that's a guess.
This is all speculation.
It's funny because
what is true is that the wife of Steven Spielberg's name is in the credits, and she only sang in the beginning, and Kathleen Turner did the rest of the movie, 90% of it, and wasn't in the credits. So,
but I always knew that it was Kathleen Turner, which is odd. Like it seems like
well, you don't read the credits to know who it is, right? People talk about it and stuff.
Yeah. But wow.
It's weird though, isn't it? I don't know. I was confused, but now I totally believe it's because Spielberg freaking wiped her name off of it to get his wife in there.
The jaded Denny comes through.
Dude, he cast his wife in freaking Temple of Doom, and she was the worst thing in any of the Indiana Jones movies. This is his wife, and
Man.
he directed it. And he's like, "Yeah, honey, get in there. We don't need casting.
Back in the
Yeah.
back in the day when you could do shit like that.
Can't you still do that?
Probably not.
I think you
There'd be
can.
uproars. There'd be uproars everywhere. If you didn't credit them, are you talking about just putting your wife?
I'm just talking about hiring them. Crediting them.
I think
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
agreed
you meant
there.
Crediting.
Get sued for sure.
Oh, you can put
And
your
you'd
wife
win.
in all sorts of shit if it's your money and
Yeah.
your productions. Who gives a fuck? Yeah.
That's still alive and strong.
Yeah, right.
Commentary time. What do you guys think?
Yeah, commentary, whatever
Sure.
trivia you
This
got.
is an epic
I
commentary.
let me know when I can talk briefly about the book because there's not a lot to say about it.
You want to do that now or what?
Yeah, let me do that now real quick. I can do
Let
it.
me know when I can do it now. Yeah,
Let
now
me
do
know
it.
when I can do
Now
it.
good?
Now
Hey,
good?
Dad,
Now it's good,
Dad,
isn't it?
can I go ahead and read the book?
So the book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit? There's just I won't. The plot is really sort of gets really weird. But some of the differences with the film is that the book is more about comic book characters, not cartoons. So it's more like there's like Hagar the Horrible and Beetle Bailey and the cartoons that are mentioned. Mickey Mouse is mentioned too, but it's a lot of other comic strip
Like
characters. and Roger
Dilbert
Rabbit.
and Garfield and stuff.
Well, that's more modern than they were like older. The cartoons that were mentioned.
Scooby Doo. I don't know old cartoon.
No,
Peanuts.
no Scooby Doo.
You got Charlie Brown in there.
Bailey. They did. I don't think they had Charlie Brown, but Roger
I have
was
no
more
idea
of
who
an
Beetle
actual
Bailey is.
rabbit.
Dinky Doodle.
Mm-mm.
Is that a real
Dinky
one?
Doodle. You don't know Hagar the Horrible? Do you know Hagar the Horrible?
He's like a Viking, right?
No.
Yeah, he was a Viking.
Yeah, he's like all hair. He's
I
all
read
beard.
some of right.
I didn't know he was a comic book character, but I've seen him before.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Is
yeah.
Dinky Doodle a real person? When that drunk guy was like making fun of Eddie at the bar, and he's
Right.
like, Dinky Doodle.
I don't know. I never heard of Dinky Doodle before.
Oh, he's real. Cartoon character created in 1924. Wow, that's an old one.
Yeah, but Snoopy is mentioned, like Dick Tracy.
I used to
and-
love Dick Tracy.
So the weird thing is Roger Rabbit. Well, not weird, but he's more of an actual rabbit-looking rabbit, not like a Bugs Bunny type of rabbit. But he's describing the book as more of a rabbit. And comic book character, the cartoons, when they talk, bubbles appear. Cartoon bubbles appear. Word bubbles appear. They
Do
still
they
talk.
not? Oh, they still
So
talk.
they,
Okay.
they do still talk, and some of the more humanoid have gotten rid of the bubbles. But Roger Rabbit talks in
Like,
bubbles.
does
and in
Jessica
fact,
have
like,
a bubble?
Yeah.
She's not humanoid enough to not have a bubble.
She is humanoid enough, so she does talk without the bubbles.
Oh, okay.
So in the book. So and that it's like left as evidence too. Like in the book, Roger Rabbit is actually shot and is killed. Spoiler.
Oh, jeez.
But another thing is Toons die in the book, the book's world. It's there's not something like dip. Interestingly, they have this thing they can do where they create doppelgangers of themselves. That's what's used for Toon stunts. So they can create replicas.
So this is the
of
Prestige?
themselves.
No shit.
It's the
That's kinda
Prestige.
cool.
I know. They don't really the morality of this is not explored.
Do the doubles, like the ones that are about to get murdered, like they don't care for life or
Supposedly
something?
they're sort of zombies or whatever, but then the problem is that it doesn't seem to be the case because it turns out that Eddie Valiant in the book ends up working with Roger Rabbit's surviving doppelganger, and that doppelganger seems to be quite aware and lifelike. So that sort of the morality of that is not explored at all. There's other things that, like when you're sitting there reading a book, you start thinking more than the movie. You don't really maybe have time to think of the movie. It's like, where do Toons come from? Like, how does this work? And the only thing the book does is mention like people have searched for the missing link between Toons and humans.
Oh, so
That's
like
about it.
the cartoons breed with each other and die of old age?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
This sounds
they're
much
more-
darker than this movie.
They're more human-like, but I don't even know what in the world of Roger Rabbit, the movie, how that works. What, somebody draws them and they come to life? How does that work? Right? I don't know. It's not really explored. But anyway, so that was interesting. But that was mostly it. I mean, the book is just a lot more complex in its plot. There's no dip. There's no judge. It's more about Roger involved in a murder plot because of the people that are controlling his contract, and then a genie from the lamp gets involved. It gets complicated, and somehow the genie's involved in granting wishes, and it just goes in lots of strange places. But it wasn't a bad read. It was like a $3 Kindle purchase. So
Nice.
Oh.
How long?
That's not bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's about like, I don't know.
Is it a
It's
short
hard-
story
I
or
don't
like
know
a
how to say
novel?
it. No, a novella. Let's say that. In
Novella.
between that.
Like 100
it's not
pages
like
or
a real.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was interesting enough. You would have been more entertaining to read having not seen the film or known of the film at all, because again, it does present it like it presents the idea of Baby Herman. He's there, like in terms of what he does and like that line.
Same character?
I've got like a 30-year-old Lustin and a 3-year-old Dinky. That line, that's directly from the book. So there's some concepts that the book has that are lifted right out of there, that are pretty funny.
God. Yeah, the thing is, like, that's not a line for kids, but I'm sure your kids didn't even like pay attention to that line whatsoever.
No. Yeah. So
Like, when is Roger going to start slapping himself in the face again? That's what I want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all that matters to the kids. Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, sweet. That's a good book corner's back. However,
Yay.
brief.
Sometimes.
It's fleeting.
Sometimes.
It's a mystery. Yeah. Depends how sick and busy John is.
Sometimes.
The commentary track is pretty epic. It had a bunch of guys on it. It had Robert Zemeckis, who is the director, Frank Marshall and Steve Starsky, who were the producers. It had Jeff Price and Peter Seaman, who were the writers, and it had Ken Ralstein, who was the special effects guy. And they were all crammed into a room together. And it was some time after they made the movie because they weren't fresh on a lot of the information. But there was, who was the guy? One of the writers was like really, he remembered a lot of it. And the writers were like on the set for the entire shoot. So everyone else was fucking around except for one of the writers would come in and be like, I think it was Jeff. He's like, this is Jeff talking. This is what happened. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's right. So he was kind of like the encyclopedia during the whole thing, which is great. Because
Nice.
otherwise I would have been like, I don't trust
It would have been
anything
all
any of
over
these
the
guys
place.
are saying right now because they're just
Yeah.
fucking around. But they were pretty complimentary on everybody. They were surprised that they got this made. They talked a lot about how, when they showed it to Disney, they were shocked at every turn, but they couldn't stop. So a big part of how this movie got made the way it was that they spent a lot of money pre-production doing all the characters and all the stuff. And then the way they had to make it was they filmed all the footage without the animation. So they did that first film with the rubber dolls that is basically tossed. I'm sure like the footage exists in full somewhere, but like they showed some of it, but mostly it's, that's a throwaway shoot. Then they go back and film it for real on the nicer cameras. Then they have to edit that footage without the animation exactly how they want the edit at the end. So like they have to edit the movie before any of the animation is in.
Before
So
they know what the animation's
once
gonna
they
look
say
like.
yes, the edit is done, that's the movie. Like they cannot
Right.
edit
then,
it again.
Then the animators got to go in and make that all look right.
Right. But once
Oh, wow.
once they send off that fully edited movie with no animation, that was the edit.
The
So
locked
and the
cut.
and the editing, not allowed to cut, not allowed to add stuff, not allowed to change the shot of the scene. Like if you notice something later, you're fucked. It's in there.
It's
gonna
called,
stay in
yeah,
there.
I was saying it's called a locked cut.
Locked cut.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what they had for 2 years because
Yeah.
it took them that long to animate it. So like, can you
So
like
they
he was
just
going
worked off
crazy.
that.
They
So
worked off
they
that.
wanted to change it. and
Right.
They couldn't
For
do it.
2 years, he
Or
wanted to
even
change
they said,
it.
oh, that's too dark or that's too nasty or whatever.
Yep.
They're like, too bad. This is what we got.
Tough shit.
Can't change
Well,
it.
so they took out one entire scene, and they actually there's I don't really they said that a bunch, but then there's one scene they took out and replaced it with one shot. So like I guess I don't really know how that works, but yeah, they did that, and I can talk about the scene they removed, and it was fucking weird. It was good they took it out, and what they replaced it with was fine, and you could barely tell. But the scene where I think it's when Eddie gets thrown out of the monkey club or whatever it's called, with the gorilla at the door,
Right,
where he meets
right.
Jessica and gets caught spying on her people. And then it cuts to his apartment where he's like without a shirt on, putting a tie on, and Jessica comes in being like giving him news about Roger being framed or whatever is going
Right,
on, like this
right.
guy died, etc. That's a pretty hard cut, I guess, but there is a shot they put in the beginning where she's walking. You can see the silhouette of Jessica Rabbit in the door of Eddie Valiant, and it's just an animated shadow moving in the door frame. And that's the thing they inserted. And what they removed was an entire scene where when he gets thrown out of the club, Judge Doom picks him up with the weasels, brings him back into the bar and questions him. And they bring him to Toontown as a punishment. Like they do this whole joke where it's like, we're going to bring you downtown. And he's like, great. And all the cops there. And he's like, no, we're bringing you downtown Toontown. And he's like, fuck.
Oh.
So they drive to Toontown, bring him in there. And then time passes and there's some weird animation of like Toontown at night. They throw him out with a sack over his head, and he pulls the sack off, and he has this animated pig helmet on his head, where like you can see his face through this tiny little hole, but his head is like a massive mascot head, and it's animated, and it's a pig. So he starts freaking out and just running down the street, and he runs home, and he takes acetone in the shower and dumps it on his head, and it melts off his face, and it goes into the drain, and you can see the pig's face in the water, just like spinning around the drain and going down the drain.
Weird.
What the hell
And
is
that transitioned
Like,
into
what?
him getting out of the shower. That's why he's coming out of the bathroom.
Oh, because he had a pig head
He had a
on.
pig head.
I mean, what sort of punishment is that? Give him the animated pig head?
It was so weird.
That is really weird.
Yeah, they said
Okay,
they took
well,
it
that's
out because
probably
it
for the
slowed
best.
down the pace. But
Yeah.
I have to, I mean, it was fucking weird. Like it really was. This movie's weird, but at least like it seems fine. But like that doesn't even make any fucking sense. And the scene of the
No, it
pig
doesn't.
face melting, it's pretty good animation. Like the rest of the movie, it was a final scene. They animated it fully.
But I thought like you couldn't. It had to be. You had to have dip, not just acetone. Like you
It didn't
had to
kill
have
him though.
special.
He didn't seem upset.
Oh.
He was just coming
Oh.
off, and Naomi's like, "I thought you couldn't kill him." Like, I'm pretty sure he's not dead. He's just coming off, and he's
okay.
going down the drain. He's gonna live in the sewer now, or like
Okay.
pop out as a pig head in the ocean sometime. I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was so weird.
That is really strange. I just don't understand the punishment even at all. What did they want? I don't.
He hates going to. So I think
I know
Judge
he's going
Doom.
to Toontown,
I think
but
Judge
having
Doom
an
knows that
animated pig on your head
to embarrass him, maybe.
Yes, maybe.
But he was freaking out and
Yeah.
screaming and running down the street. So
Yeah.
the second to last shot they did was the first live action shot of the movie, the one where the baby's coming out of the fridge and Roger's showing like it's one long continuous take from the fridge to Eddie. They saved it for last because they knew they needed the most money for it. It was one of the most complicated shots in the movie, and everyone deemed it to be the most important shot of the movie because you're transitioning from cartoon.
Yeah.
You're basically showing how this world works in
Right.
one single
and if you don't
shot.
buy it there, it's this is your chance to
Yeah.
like get people to go along with you
Mhm.
here. And you want it to be really startling. You want it to be startlingly good because if you could get that, then you got them for then they're in, right? Then they can buy this world existing the way it does. Yeah, it makes sense.
And they have a
It's
lot of the
great,
effects
too.
too, where like the baby like goes underneath the girl's dress and it flies up in the air, and then like Roger's pulling on the jacket and you can see the sleeve getting pulled and all that type of stuff. I also noticed this time, I didn't notice this before, the legs of the mother in that cartoon were real when it went to reality. Did you see that? It was like two animatronic legs in the background pumping up and down.
Huh.
Oh.
So that wasn't even
I didn't-
animated in the movie. It was just like robot legs
Oh.
filmed in
Okay.
the cartoon. It was weird.
I didn't even
I didn't
notice
notice that. Yeah.
This movie was filmed in L Street Studios. Was that the one that Kubrick burned down with The Shining? I think it was, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
L Street. Pretty sure it was. It doesn't exist anymore. Maybe because Kubrick burned it
I
down.
think maybe that's right. He cursed it.
Kubrick burn down. Yeah, L Street.
Yeah.
That was 79 though. This is 88. So I guess they rebuilt it and it just doesn't exist anymore. So anyway, they liked filming in the UK because there were less labor laws there than in Hollywood at the time. And in the studio set for the final factory scene, they shot 24 hours a day for weeks on end to get that final scene, which they could do. Like they rotated first, second, and third unit directors. When it was the first unit, they would get like all the actor shots and all that type of stuff. The second and third units, they would kind of alternate 8-hour periods of time. And the second and third units would get like all the pickup shots of like where there weren't humans, like when the weasels were pushing the barrels up into the pit, when like the hose is spraying, like all the stuff where there wasn't a human in the shot was done, not with Zemeckis, but done with like two other unit directors, just because they could and because they needed to.
right.
Because like the production was really slow during the filming of this, like 8 months of filming and then 2 years of animation afterwards.
Holy shit.
Shout out to the weasels. I like the weasels a
I
lot.
loved the weasels.
Yeah.
They were probably the best. Yeah.
Who do you
The weasels
identify
were
with,
great
TC?
characters.
Who's your weasel?
The weasels. Yeah.
That was
No, which one?
One of them's named Wise
I don't
Ass.
know.
The guy with
One
the
of
straight
them's
jacket and the
named-
crazy eyes?
Yeah.
Or is the guy
That's
with
a
the
good
hat and the
question.
leader with like the gun who like talks like a 1940s?
I think it was that guy.
That
Yeah,
guy.
It was
yeah.
the guy, the 1940s guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it, boss. Yeah, don't worry about
I
it.
know,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
The animators did all the animation, obviously, over 300 animators, but then they took the animated cells, because animators can only animate, which is, it's saying a lot, but it's also limiting to what this movie does, because once they had all the animation done, they took all those frames and sent them to ILM, who then added the lighting effects and the shadow effects to make all the characters look three-dimensional. And they also added things like the smoke from the baby cigar and other types of like special effects that are all over the place in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was further edited past the whole process of like taking every single frame, blowing it up. They showed like how big the frames were. It was like 11 by 17 pictures of each frame, each animator animated against, and then a colorist went and colored it. And then they went and they, scanned it. I forget what it was called, but they have like a scanner to do like an animated frame. And they put all of those together and then they sent them to ILM for further processing.
Wow.
For further effects.
Wow.
And that's not even considering sound and music and, all the other stuff. Crazy.
Well, they had 2 years to figure out a lot of that. So
yeah, people got
time.
They said the animators at the beginning were daunted by the. They've never done that before. They've never animated against a live frame. This has never happened before, really, for most or for any of them.
I mean, there's like Mary Poppins where there's like some, there's these cases of
But none of these people that were alive were on that one. Probably
we're working on that.
And also, Mary Poppins, the rule used to be you can't move the camera when you're animating something like this. But in this movie, they're like, fuck that. We're going to move the camera. It's going to be groundbreaking and awesome.
Right.
And they actually found that moving the camera was somewhat easier with their process because it was easier to make them seem three-dimensional when the camera was moving. And any like fault in the animation was harder to pick up because stuff was moving around.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, you're right. The Mary Poppins scene, I'm thinking, I don't remember everything about that movie, but there's like a dance scene.
It's like birds.
Yeah.
And yeah. That was almost like green screened though. They weren't interacting with the creatures,
you're right. You're right. It wasn't a whole lot of it. It was still impressive for the time, but yeah.
Yeah. That's true. We got two. We got Mary Poppins and the new Chip and Dale movie.
Oh, yeah. Which is crazy.
You recommended that, John? I highly enjoyed that movie. I don't know if I told you I watched it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it was
not
so
say it's
good.
Fine art or anything.
I don't know, dude. It was ridiculous.
It's reckless, and I like it. It's just it's not. It's very irreverent.
It's like this movie. It makes you go, "How did Disney let people do this? This is insane." They gave him a big budget to do this crazy fucking thing.
That one just sort of came and went too. I don't know if it made the money or not.
It went straight to streaming. I thought, didn't it?
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was. It was pandemic times.
Which is too bad.
I just wonder if it was a success for them or not.
Tone mats, what they call the shadows. Tone mats. Bob mimed almost everything, with a few exceptions. There were the scene where he had Roger's stuff down his jacket and he's trying to sneak him into the bar. They had a bunch of like motorized balloons to like pump inside of his jacket, which like kind of mimics the kicking and stuff. But he did mime pushing the head down when Roger was trying to pop up and he's like, get the fuck in there. They're going to kill you. So they had that footage of him miming it in the behind the scenes. And then they had Robert Zemeckis sitting with the animators, showing them the footage, describing to them what Roger should be doing. He was like, all right, so Roger's in there and he wants to get out. So he was kind of just like squishing his head down because like it wasn't there yet, but Robert Zemeckis was just like, he's squishing his head down and Roger doesn't want to go in. So he's like resisting against it. And all the animators are sitting there laughing, listening to this description, getting ready for like their next assignment for
that's pretty funny.
However long that takes to do. Disney didn't like the wise ass line, but guess what?
Yeah.
It's in the movie. Can't edit it. Sorry, Disney.
Oh, right.
Somehow Zemeckis got final cut on this movie.
I mean, it's his.
That's amazing.
It's a hell of a project. He's probably like adamant, like you're not touching this. This is my deal.
I'm surprised though, right? Because I mean, he did Romancing the Stone and Back to the Future, but you don't hear about directors getting final cut.
Spielberg worked some magic there again.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Most of the exterior locations were in downtown LA. Some of it was in Oakland, though. Oakland, California.
Did you
believe it or not?
Recognize any
of
it? No. Okay.
They were in shots where you really couldn't see anything. And they did that on purpose because they had to shoot in Oakland for some reason, but they needed to match the shots it was in the middle of like a different scene. There are outside scenes where it's like, this angle is in LA, that angle is in Oakland, and it's like the same scene. So they tried to make it as vague as possible. The nightclub scene was an elevated set, 8 feet off the ground. They had the penguins you see walking around with drinks were actually slotted channels in the floor where people had metal poles coming up where the platters were sitting on the metal poles and people were under the ground holding the metal poles, walking them underneath the set. And then they animated the penguins underneath that. The
Oh,
octopus
wow.
guy was an actual bartender and also mechanical arms. So there was one guy mixing drinks and then mechanical arms moving the other cups around, and they just animated over that. Most of the special effects were either miming, they had mechanical arms, or they were fighting against something. When Eddie's like fighting Roger and he's pulling him off the door, he has like one of those 80s elastic bands exercise things you see sometimes. You don't anymore, but remember those things? They had like two handles and like a bunch of springs between them, and you'd like stretch them, and people would be like, "This will make you strong."
Oh yeah.
Somewhat.
Somewhat.
I'm picturing it in my head. They have like it's like a bunch of springs between two bars that you hold in your hand.
Yeah. So he had that, and they attached it to like the door handle, and he was just like pulling on it, and they animated Roger's legs onto it. That's how like he stretched him so far. A lot of stuff like that. But a surprising amount of him just doing it himself. Like when Roger chokes him and jumps on him and stuff like that, he'll just throw himself around and make facial expressions that line up really well. They shot the Jessica Rabbit singing scene with a real actress there. So that was kind of rotoscoped, I guess. Different kind of animation where they just drew over a person. And there were shots where she goes behind the Acme guy and like does the thing with the handkerchief on his head and then goes and sits down on Eddie. That was a real person doing those things. They weren't necessarily acting there. Jessica Rabbit's animation, they were worried about it. They were worried about her whole character and whether or not, people would think it was way too much. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So what they did is to desexualize her, I'm not sure this worked, was to make her bounce the opposite direction a regular woman would bounce. So I didn't notice this, but if, when she's walking, her boobs move, but they move opposite of how they would. So whenever they should be bouncing down, they bounce up instead.
Oh, weird.
And they do that on
Just
purpose
to make
like
it less
to make it
realistic.
less
sort of?
realistic. Yeah, because they figured if they did it realistically, it would
would be
not
bad.
fly.
I mean, it's just it's so over the top, and it's just making fun of the noir setting in a way that it's like it doesn't even today. It doesn't seem. It just seems like such a parody. It doesn't like
maybe
seem
because
like
of the opposite jiggle.
Maybe
I mean,
that's
yeah,
what
I think it
made
would make a
right?
big difference.
Maybe it did. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody
The
go
opposite
and
jiggle.
rerun
Who
the
came
frames
up with
and
that
fix
idea?
that.
I have no
What
idea.
a great idea.
Good
What if
idea.
we just I know, run that
Reverse
through
it.
AI and see what the
Yeah.
difference is. Like, let's just see if it.
Like, what the fuck, man?
So good idea there, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't notice it. Now I want to go back and check the animated tits.
Yeah. For research. It's for research.
Yeah. I'm just gonna look at it. Just look at it.
I'm sure you guys noticed, but the sparkly dress was only in the singing scene. That was the most intense special effect they had in the movie. Took them forever to do that. The little sparkles on her dress. You know what I'm talking about? First
No.
scene had like her dress was like sheer and there was little sparkles all over the place. And it looked really good. But then the rest of the movie, it's just kind of an opaque red dress.
How come?
They wanted to do it sparkly, but it was just, they did that scene first because it was the most important. They were running out of time and it took way too many people to do it. It was super hard to
Oh
do.
shit, that sucks.
Yeah. So all the effects were filmed on VistaVision, which is 2 times larger than a 35 millimeter. So any of the shots they knew that cartoons were going to be in it or animation was going to be in it, they filmed it on VistaVision. And then the rest of it on 35. Because what they found is when you print a VistaVision, animate over it, and put it back in, it loses some brightness and some clarity.
Yeah, right.
Those two things. So by having a bigger picture in the beginning and then degrading it and it losing a little bit of its light there, if you shrink it down, then it gains that
It's
back.
still a higher resolution.
Right.
Yeah,
And
right.
it matches the 35 millimeter from the other
Yeah.
one. So like whenever you see animated versus non-animated, it's 2 different types of cameras, but it
Two different
really
type of
can't
film.
tell. It's switching between 2 things.
Hmm.
Either of you noticed that Christopher Lloyd did not blink this entire movie?
No, I remember reading that. That's what he intentionally wanted to do that.
He didn't blink. Those
So
weren't his
every
eyes.
Oh.
Because like that's a part of his character. He's like, all right, I have fake eyes in because I have this human mask on and these plastic eyes, and I won't ever blink because why would I blink? So it's perfect. He does not blink in this movie, not in any of the shots he's in. He doesn't fuck it up
And then
once.
it fits perfectly for the eyes.
Yeah,
It's great. I could see it being a problem, right? Because you're, animating over a blink, and then you got to animate.
Oh, I blinked. I'm
bigger,
sorry. We have to do it over. It was going perfectly, but I blinked. We have to do it over.
Right.
One thing they did with all that time after they filmed the shoot was since they didn't animate the characters, they had time to perfect a lot of the cartoon characters' dialogue in those scenes.
Oh.
So they did a lot of rewrites for the cartoon side of people. there was like a year for some of the scenes between when they
Right.
were
They'd still have to fit it in, like
contextually, yes, but like the
time
writing
still,
could
the timing
improve.
still has to be the same, but they
Right.
could like adjust the words and stuff to sort of really. Yeah,
So they found a way to fidget. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
They fidgeted
Yeah.
in the cartoon dialogue. The scene where they're driving in that cab, he has a tiny little go-kart he's sitting on top of the center of, and behind him on the ground, there's a go-kart driver that's actually
nice.
driving the cart. They did that for the entire
I
scene.
like the cab too. The cab was great.
Yeah. It's pretty funny when the cab gets in the car and he's like, I'm driving. Turns his headlights on. But that cart was also used in Back to the Future 3 for a scene where Marty is being dragged. I don't remember the scene, but they said
Oh, the
they kept
go-kart
it.
was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The theater scene where Roger Rabbit is talking to Bob or to Eddie is the longest single animated shot ever. It's like one long continuous animated shot, and it's in this.
Oh.
And it's just of Roger because he's in the theater listening to Eddie's story about his brother, and he's looking concerned and stuff. But it's like the longest continuous animated shot there is.
To this day?
Hand drawn to this day. Yeah.
Wow.
And they knew that was a very important scene to them because that was when they humanized Eddie's character, and that's when like you saw that like they had a good relationship. And now because Roger's a maniac, but in this scene he like settles down and listens and feels bad
He
for him
listens.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Disney wanted 12 minutes of animation in the final movie with that $30 million budget. With the $70 million, they got 48 minutes of animation.
See?
It's a lot more.
Huh.
1,300 effect shots. When Christopher Lord gets run over, the first shot of him standing up wasn't an effect. It was just like they built a flat person with mechanical things to move him around. So that was just
That was practical effect.
practical effect. But then the next shot was stop motion. For Judge Doom's death, they had to build a pool around an elevator, which is very hard to do because elevators seams and stuff in them.
Right.
In water, you can't have seams, so they needed to waterproof an elevator, which typically have to do. That's what they did. So he was basically going down an elevator into a pool. The wall break at the end where they had that machine full of dip crash through the brick wall, that was a miniature set, and it was constructed by manually placing each individual brick in the wall. And they did 10 takes of that scene. So they built a miniature wall with all the miniature bricks 10 times. I don't know why.
And then had to blow
Just break until they got the one they wanted.
Yeah, I guess.
God.
Right when that thing gets hit by the train, if you pause every frame of that shot of the train going by, every single train car in that shot has somebody being murdered by a silhouette in different ways.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's creative.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
You definitely miss it. It goes by so fast, but if you pause it, you can see it.
It's just murder train? Like, why do that?
Murder train. For fun. Why not?
I guess
no one will see it.
At this
Because they're
point.
bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The long shot at the end with all of or it was a long shoot. They were going over budget, and they had a thing where it said the number of characters at the end. They animated this last shot, the last shot last with all the characters, and the number of characters they could put in there was dependent on how over budget the movie ended up. So they had some motivation to not go too over budget. So they actually did cut out some characters they were initially planning on putting in there.
Oh, wow.
Just because they went,
They were already
$40 million over budget.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nice.
Hey.
The TC, would you put this in the top 250? You haven't seen it before?
Yeah, because it was impressive. I've never seen anything like it.
Did it strike you as very unique when you watched it?
Yeah, definitely. I just wasn't that enthralled by the subject matter, I guess. I don't know.
Cartoons in general?
Yeah.
Were
I
you
don't
less
know.
interested in the noir story or the cartoon parts?
The cartoon parts, I think.
Yeah.
I got sick of like trying to figure out who was who and what was, what were they in? And before I know it, I wasn't paying attention. And it kind of flip-flopped between that a lot. And then I'd see something really cool and be like, oh, wow, this movie's great. And I'd be like, well, who's that again? Why does that person matter? And then I got lost. But like otherwise, watching it for production value and just all that kind of stuff and just like the jokes about LA and jokes about Hollywood, like those things all landed for me. I just, wouldn't be picking this out of a intentional, I'm going to watch this movie today.
Well, you're welcome.
Situation.
Another one on the list.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And yeah, John, you said yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I don't know how many, I mean, I'm sure there are different ways, but to think about like, this is something in this way you probably won't see again. There are a number of things about this film that you're just not going to see this. And so it's like one of a kind. in a sense, and I think that that's pretty cool. It's really what they decided to pull off. Like here you have like the top animators in the world, and they're like, this is going to be hard. I don't know if we can do this. I think that's, again, it's just really cool what they sort of decided to pull off, how they just fought to make this too. Like they were over budget. They fought to do what they wanted. And again, probably because you have someone like Spielberg, sort of like making sure things happen, even though, it's, Disney themselves, who maybe weren't as powerful, and they were in sort of a waning phase. So maybe they weren't like as willing, they weren't fighting tooth and nail to keep their brand because they might've been worried about their brand just disappearing anyway. But yeah, so it's really cool. I think it's kind of an amazing achievement. You add that it's really entertaining anyway on top of that. So,
and they actually, like, when you were talking, one of the things they did was to challenge themselves with animation, with stuff that's never been done. And there was one of the hardest scenes, they said, was when they decided to bump the lamp in the back of the bar where Roger was. So there was a swinging light throughout the room, and all the walls were being painted. They would have to like animate. So they had to animate the light on Roger because it had never been done. It had a moving camera and moving light on an animated character, and they're just like, let's see if we can do it, and they did it. And that's an industry term now. Bump the lamp is what you call something if you just like you do something to flex that you can do it, or to see if you can do it.
Oh, just to like that's really cool.
People won't notice it, but like it'll be cool and it'll like bring you more into the world, sort of thing.
I'm gonna try to find some kind of context to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bump the lamp.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, well, I mean, do it just to do it.
That doesn't seem like a hard thing to do. I knock over shit all the time, but whatever.
Yeah. No, not that kind of bump.
We're going to bump the lamp, guys. Huh? He's going to bump the lamp. Oh, you go on, you crazy fool. Bump that lamp.
All right. So next week.
All right. What are we watching
back
next
to the
week?
list.
Don't say EO.
This is the most. So I've been wondering about this movie for a while because I've never heard of this movie. It has nearly 1 million votes and it has an 8.5, and it's from 2011, and it's called The Intouchables. Intouchables, not Untouchables.
Right.
The Intouchables.
Intouchables, and it is a foreign movie, maybe a French movie.
I don't think it's. I think it's English though.
Is it?
Yeah, and maybe it's British.
Intouchables.
British.
Unless I'm confusing it with something else.
I think it's French.
Okay, then it's the French.
It is.
Holy shit, did it make a ton of money?
Yeah, it's the most viewed French film in the world.
Can you imagine spending $10 million and making 360? Holy
Ooh, yeah. All right, so it's popular and it's good. So that's always hopefully a good
French,
combination.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely check this out. It seems like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Well, sweet.
Nice. Cool, guys. We'll see you
Alrighty.
next week.
Talk to you next week, guys.
All right, boys.
Thanks, all.
Stop 'em.